under.
I'm a complete idiot. I'm not even drinking, and I missed that it was from 40 plus. I'm going under, only because the only thing that I got out of Foley talking a couple weeks ago when he did was that they're comfortable with 25 in.
45, 40, 35, 30, he's gonna go!
It's time people feel us!
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better! We get better and better! Team is If we die, we die!
Man, woman, and child in that, put him in the aisle.
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln.
One of my favorite things that we do for the entire season typically will involve some shot betting. Jed, do we have some prop bets?
Yes. First question. I got 10 questions here. First question. Which running back will have the most carries? Emmett Johnson, Ramir Johnson, Gabe Ervin, Dante Dowdell, or other?
We going rapid fire on this?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll jump in first. I'll say Emmett Johnson.
Okay.
You said most carries?
Most carries.
Oof.
Not touches, so like the receptions don't count. Running back carries.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Gabe Ervin. This is a hopeful one because my hope here is that he stays healthy, and if he stays healthy, I don't think you're going to be able to keep him off the field.
I've got Gabe as well for that exact reason. I think if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be the guy.
And that's a giant if.
Yep.
I also had Gabe Ervin, but I don't need to rapid fire this shit. Go.
All right, Nebraska scoring defensive ranking. They were 13th last year at 18.3 points per game. Number 20 last year was 19.5 per game. I've got the Nebraska scoring defensive ranking at 20.5. So basically, will we be a top 10 or top 20 ranked scoring defense?
I'm going to jump in and say yes.
Okay.
I'm going to take the under 20.5 here for you. I think.
Well, I guess that would technically be the over, but I'll ask the question as will we be
better?
Yeah. Will we be a top 20 scoring defense? So just yes or no.
Yeah, I'm going with yes on that one. I would almost bet the farm on that because I think there's only going to be maybe 3 teams, maybe 4 teams that we let go over 20 points in this season.
My concern with that is that if you have an offense that is ahead by, say, 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, does the defense start letting in some leaky points at the end of games to pull that number down? Nebraska was top 20 last year because they needed to keep every single point off the board that they could. If there's less urgency in a game like, say, Indiana, I'm just picking a game for example here, say you're up by a couple scores late, do you let in a late touchdown just because it really doesn't matter at this point? That's my concern. I'll still say top 20 is tough. I would say top 25. I could see them falling anywhere between 15 and 25, but I will say yes, they are a top 20 scoring defense.
I'm going to counter your point on that just because we heard last season them talk about, especially it's a big Tony White thing, that you play defense to win and to keep them out of the end zone for every minute of the game. That's not going to stop. I realize we'll probably run some youngsters out there, but his defense didn't let up last year when that happened. So that's just a counterpoint. It's not that it's invalid.
I see our defense being just as good, if not better. So I'm saying yes.
I think our defense can be just as good stylistically and playing. I still think that some of the stats are going to come back to sort of a reality. I'm saying no also because I believe playing the Big Ten West schedule against terrible offenses like we did last year.
I agree.
What we're not doing this year. I'm saying no. I'm not saying that we're going to give up a shit ton of points, but I just don't know that we're going to be a top 20 defense this year.
Yeah.
Question 3, sacks by Nebraska's defense. Matt Rhule has been saying how he wants to do 40 sacks and 20 takeaways. I'm not doing the takeaways right now, but sacks by Nebraska's defense, I'm just going to say the 40, 39.5. We had 32 last year. 16 of them were in only 2 games. So 16, the other 16 were in the other 10 games. It's only 40 sacks plus 40 sacks has only happened 20 times in the Big Ten since we entered the league in 2011. 10 teams got to 40 sacks last year. Penn State was the only school in the Big Ten to get to 40 sacks last year. Not even Michigan did
And if
in 15 games.
And if I remember correctly, I think Nebraska's only ever gotten to 40 sacks once since the 09 season.
I think the last time was 2009, yeah.
I think there was one time in there where it was like a stupid Mike Riley season where Nebraska was still bad. I want to say they still got
I'll go through and check.
to
But
40 once because teams were just throwing the ball all over the yard. I could be wrong on that stat. I know they had like something stupid that 2009 season, like 40.
oh, yeah. In 2009, we definitely were over 40. But
Well, that's the thing. When I look at this, I think that this is by far and away our most talented defensive front since 09. And you look at the fact that we're deep on that. Rotationally, we're not losing. Last year when Hutmaker and Robinson were out of the game, you didn't know who you were turning to, and you were turning to a true freshman. That's a different story this year. We've got extreme depth on that defensive line that is seasoned now, and they play together even better in the second year of Tony White's defense. And because takeaways and turnovers is such a major focus for them this season on defense, getting to the quarterback is going to be a major, major part of that, both from the interception side of things and the fumble side of things. You got to look at the teams that we're going to play that are going to give us opportunity to get back there. You get a couple chances here. Colorado, for sure. Ohio State is probably going to be one of those that's going to give us a few more chances, but it's against a much better offensive line. But UCLA, USC, they're going to truck the ball around.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin. I wasn't even factoring Wisconsin. Yeah, I'm going to go over on this just simply because of the depth and the style that we're going to have to play with this year. The defensive line's going to have some more urgency to get to the quarterback.
Also, if you're playing with a lead more, to my point earlier, you're going to force other teams to
hold on to the ball and try and make big plays.
Yep. 40. You've set a great line.
It's a fantastic number.
I mean, I went off of what Rhule said. It's not really. I can't really take credit for setting this line, but
I'm going to go under just barely. I think it's going to be close. We're talking somewhere in the high 30s is probably where they end up, but I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, I'm going under 2 just because of math. If not that many teams are able to do it, and we're in a lot of games in the Big Ten where there's still a lot of running going on.
3.5 sacks a game is essentially what you're going for.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
a lot of Big Macs,
we didn't
guys.
get there last year when we had 8 sacks against Colorado.
and 8 against Northwestern.
Yeah.
So it seems high.
Yeah, I'm taking the
Love
under.
to be wrong. Seems high.
I'm taking the under as well, also because in the Big Ten, you just don't play enough teams where you're going to rack up sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there's not many teams in the Big Ten that do it every year. As good as our defenses are in the Big Ten, we just don't play offenses where you can rack up a shit ton of sacks. Question 4, Nebraska turnovers lost. Obviously, this is the biggest story that anybody could ever have as far as how many turnovers do we give up. We gave up 31 last year. Everybody knows that. Tied for the most with Georgia Southern. I'm going to put this number basically at the 20 mark that Rhule said mainly with takeaways, but I'm going to put it at his number with giveaways at 19.5 turnovers lost.
Another great line.
In the 5 seasons previous to last year, obviously with the 31 kind of adjusts the average, we average giving up 19.6 per season. So it's pretty much at that number.
The number I had in mind was 18. That was the number I thought. Turnover and a half per game-ish. I'm sure there's going to be a couple games where you don't turn the ball ever. Dear God, please.
Yeah.
But there's probably going to be a couple where they come in bunches. So
Did we even have one of those last year?
What? Zero?
A zero turnover game?
I think we had one. I don't really remember.
I'm not going to go back and look because there's so many turnovers to sift through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's your get-right game the week after Colorado?
Northern Iowa.
No. Last year. Who was your get-right game after Colorado?
Northern Illinois or La Tech, one of those two.
It was Northern Illinois.
I don't think you turned the ball over in one of those games.
I know we did against Northern Illinois.
I don't think you did against Louisiana Tech. Could be wrong on that, though. I will take, let's be an optimist. I'll take the under 19.5.
Okay.
But just barely. I think that there's going to be turnovers that come with a freshman quarterback.
We had 0 turnovers against Louisiana Tech, by the way.
Look at that memory.
There you go. There you go.
You took the under, you said?
Under, but it's going to be, there's still going to be a good number of turnovers this year.
Yep.
Unfortunately. The question is not how many times you turn the football over. It's can you get close to even on your turnover differential. That's going to be the more important question for me this year. But I'll go under just barely.
I think for me, the biggest thing that you're hearing right now about the way that Dylan Raiola is practicing, combined with what his numbers looked like in high school, only giving up 11 interceptions to 88 touchdowns. The kid is averse to losing the ball, period. And when you have a quarterback who's that focused on, it's okay, I can give up on this play and throw it away, you're going to fix a lot of what our turnover issue was last year, which was, if it happened behind the line of scrimmage, it was a quarterback who wasn't really in tune with what his running backs were doing, trying to take the ball from him, a quarterback who really wasn't in tune with what his center was doing, trying to get the ball from him, or a guy who was holding onto the ball too long, throwing an interception, or getting sacked and dropping it. Which is, I mean, Jeff Sims, how many times did he just like randomly drop the ball as he got it from the center? It happened constantly. Play one that he got in the game against Purdue, Squirtin picked up a fumble where Jeff Sims didn't even get touched. I mean, things like that happened that were absolutely crazy last year that are just going to be fixed by having Dylan Raiola at quarterback. I'm going under.
Hopefully.
I'm going under.
I'm also going under just because of the emphasis that has been made on this year.
God, now that everyone's going under, I kind of want to go over, but
Yeah.
Calm down, Chad.
I'm actually taking the under only because you said the 18 number. I'm thinking 1.5 per game.
Yep.
That's 18.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be super close to this 19.5 number. I'm going to barely take the under. Question 5.
I mean, I see like Ohio State, Dylan might throw 3 interceptions.
Maybe.
Like that might happen 1 or 2 games where he just has a freshman meltdown moment.
well, there's also left tackle concerns, hit from the blind side, ball goes flying. That's also possible.
That's true.
There's
It's also
definitely
not just Dylan Raiola. You still have to account for the running backs.
That's true too. That's true too.
Also,
But those guys aren't going to be in the game if they're not holding on to the ball in practice.
you also got to consider we started watching the Nebraska Purdue game. We fumbled it on the kick return.
Yep.
So I mean that counts too.
That's true too.
You know, I mean it's not just our offense. So it's
you guys are talking me into going over, but I'm going to stay with my pick.
But I mean,
stay on the under.
they're even putting defensive players that might pick up a scoop and score or an interception. They're putting those guys through fumble drills.
Yeah.
The emphasis they're putting on this entire team about the way you're going to hold on to the ball, I just feel like this has to be better this year.
Yes.
Can I also say one more thing with this?
no.
All right, moving on.
You're not allowed.
The emphasis that's been placed from what I've heard from the defensive coaches this year on getting takeaways, it's continued through camp. They really have a big emphasis on the defense generating takeaways. I think that's going to help the offense in the long run. Whenever you have a defense that's probably as good as damn near every defense you have on your schedule, except maybe 2.
Yeah.
Ohio State and Iowa. If that defense is emphasizing taking the ball away during camp and you have to go against that every single day, it's going to help you in the long run whenever you go up against a defense that isn't as focused and talented. I'm wanting to take the ball away.
Some of my under is also very hopeful because
The 100%. I will absolutely own that.
question 5. I had this question last year. Field goals made of 40 plus yards, and I'm putting the number at 6.5. I know that does sound like a high number because we were 3 of 8 last year on field goals made over 40 yards. But I'm also kind of thinking if we lower our turnovers, we're going to have more possessions, which
True.
gives us more opportunities to get to those field goal ranges. So I've got the number at 6.5. I had the number at 4.5 last year, and I was the only one to take the under, and we had hit the under. So.
Oh, congratulations.
So you're not allowed to take the under this year is what I'm hearing.
Except I might be.
This is an interesting one to me because I feel like a question that I need to have answered in my mind is who's going to be our field goal kicker?
Yeah.
Because
I thought the same thing, but I was just thinking of opportunities more than
I
who
totally
the actual
understand.
kicker is going to
I
be.
totally understand. We also talked a lot in our offensive preview about the change in our personnel in the red zone and how we have towers to put out at wideout that are going to give a completely different look than what most teams in the Big Ten give you in the red zone, especially deep in the red zone. I think some of those shorter opportunities are going to get eaten up by touchdowns more than they have. Not even just last year, but prior to that. It's going to be, it's so hard to say this because we don't know what our offense really looks like yet. That being said, I think that 6.5 is a pretty attainable number if you're going to score points. Like I think Nebraska's going to score points this year, especially late in games when we've got backups in. I'll go over.
Okay.
My counterpoint to that is if you have a more capable offense, does it make you on 4th and 3 or 4th and 4 from the 35-yard line where
Go
you'd be
for
kicking a 42-yarder to go for it? That's the question I have here. Hey,
Especially if you're not confident in the field goal
Yeah,
kicker kicking a
if you're
42
Especially
not-
from that distance.
if
Yeah.
you're not confident in him, if you're confident in your defense and you have some confidence in your quarterback and your offense to go get you a couple of yards, I think Nebraska in that territory of the field might go for it more just because we know how fickle, let's get in the psychology of kickers, the head cases that kickers can be whenever they see one miss or two miss.
Absolutely.
And now they got the yips and they can't hit from out there. I wouldn't be surprised to see Nebraska go for a little bit more in plus territory when it's still a long field goal. So I'm going to go under 6.5.
Before we talked about, like, you guys both made great points. Before we said any of this, I felt like 6.5 was high. So I'm definitely
For
taking the
main
under.
field goals on the season?
From 40
from 40
yards.
plus.
from 40,
40
plus.
plus. Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And also,
I'm-
I don't trust the kid yet, so I'm going under.
I'm a complete idiot. I'm not even drinking, and I missed that it was from 40 plus. I'm going under, only because the only thing that I got out of Foley talking a couple weeks ago when he did was that they're comfortable with 25 in, and outside of that, they have no fucking idea what's happening. So the point that you made, now I feel like an idiot for all the shit that I talked about being deep in the red zone because it makes no sense because we're talking about 40 plus out.
We'll just let you go.
Yeah.
Get deep in the red-
knows what it means.
Yeah.
Get deep in the red zone and then kick a 40-yard field. You can do what you want.
Yeah, that
You can do what you want.
That's probably a fumble recovery.
To be honest, I've watched some Husker games. They're deep in the red
Yeah.
zone. They settle for a long field goal. I've
That,
seen
that,
some
that
penalties.
Virginia Tech game, we were in the red zone and we punted.
Yeah.
It made sense, honestly.
Completely revamping my answer to under. To piggyback on your point, I don't think we're going to take a lot outside of 40. It's just I think you'd have to see a tremendous difference in the mental aspect of Alvano. And I don't know, I can't remember the other kicker, the guy that's
Otamendi.
what's it?
You have Otamendi, Nico Otamendi.
Yeah, there we go.
And then you also have, there's a Southwest walk-on transfer home is his name.
Stacked
Well,
kicking room.
From
huh?
what it sounds like, they're good with literally anybody kicking inside of 25 without having seen Alvano kick this fall. So I think that's covered. But outside of that, the way Foley made it sound was like they had no idea what they were going to do. So, nope, I'm going under for sure on that. I think 3.5 might be a high number set on that one.
Okay. Just because I was the only one to take the under last year, I'm going to say fuck it and I'll take the over. Just for shits and
We're going
giggles.
to hit 80 fucking field goals from that range this year.
That's how confident Jed is in the rest of his picks that he's like, I got to put one loss up there.
Yeah, why not?
Kicking savant Jed.
Yeah. I mean, he has watched 3 full days worth of
Yeah,
documentaries
that's
on it.
not true, but
He went to a
whatever.
documentary camp specifically about filmmaking for kicking.
Wow.
Jesus
Not
Christ.
just about kicking.
It was the week after the Japanese baseball one you did.
Yeah.
Good for okay. That's crazy. Small world.
We're going to stick with special teams here. Let's just say, are we going to have a kick return, kickoff, or punt for a touchdown? So the number is just 0.5.
I'm gonna start off with this one, and I think it's yes.
Which-
As long as Jalen Lloyd is back there, he's got a fucking shot.
Or Barney.
So we've had 2 kick returns for a touchdown in the last 10 years.
I don't want your stats, Jed.
Can you
He's fast as
name
fuck.
those 2?
No.
The
Were
morning
they
personnel.
by the same guy?
No, Pearsonell was before that.
Were they by the same guy?
Yes.
Then it
You
had to
said
have been
10
Spielman.
years.
Yeah, it was Spielman.
It has to be
Okay.
Spielman.
I thought Pearsonell was
I
16.
know he had the punt return against South Alabama. Are we counting that?
Yep.
I could not tell you the
The
other one. though.
kickoff return was J.D. Spielman 2 years previous in 2017
Wow, okay.
against Arkansas State.
Another
Okay.
game Nebraska almost lost.
Yeah.
We really needed those points.
And I think Jalen Lloyd is faster. So
Technically
Got a
speaking, Hartzog is credited with a punt return, but that was on a punt block.
Yeah.
But that I don't count that. So
If I remember correctly, didn't Arkansas State come all the way back against Nebraska and recover an onside and then have their drive stall out after they recovered an onside down by like
that was
3?
a long time ago. I don't remember.
Yeah.
That was my freshman year of college. I remember most of the student section had cleared out. I was like, all right, let's get out of here. Arkansas State scored. Maybe we'll stay. And they recovered an onside. And oh my God.
Matt, what did you say again, real quickly? You said it already. No.
He said yes.
no, I'm saying yes.
Okay.
We're totally getting one this
Okay.
year.
If this was a special teams touchdown, regardless, like if it was going to be
On
a
a
kick
block
return
or-
or a block, I'd have way more faith in that. I'm going to say no just because of math and history. Also, I feel like from from looking at the personnel we have in the wide receiver room, I don't think Jalen Lloyd's going to be back there getting bludgeoned on punt returns or kickoffs. I think that's going to be more of a...
And Damon made it sound this morning or yesterday that Barney might not be back there as much as we kind of think he will be. So
I think that's going to be a place for Castaneda to get on the field, Garcia Castaneda to get on the field. And he's not blazing fast. He's got good vision. He's old. He's savvy. I don't see him being a guy who's going to get it back, but he's going to be a surefire catch and decent yards.
Sierra Wright was back there at the open practice, pitching some punts, so who knows? But
can I just jump in the deep end here and say, I think they probably do get one, and my rationale is different than what you guys are going to say. Because you guys know who's coaching returners now?
Ron Brown.
Bang. Ron Brown. You know what Ron Brown's rules were back in the 90s for returning punts and kicks?
No.
No fair catches, no running out of bounds.
Well, that's a big one. The fair catches, that's a big thing to me.
Yeah, those were his 2 rules for his returners. You can't fair catch because, hey, the defense is required by the rules to give you a halo. They're giving you a fair catch.
Yeah.
So that was one of his rules. The other one was you can't run out of bounds. If the kickers or the kick returners, punt returners are instructed to do that this year, hey, weird shit happens.
We're going to look way different because all we've seen is fair catches for 10 years.
So I'm going to say yes, they do get one just because if, hey, you're not allowed to fair catch, you're not allowed to run out of bounds, some weird shit's going to happen. Nebraska's going to score 1.
I'm treating this question like we did forever with the punt return of 10 yards.
Prove it.
So no.
That should be a button.
Yeah, it should be. Question 7. How many players, so it doesn't matter if it's a receiver, tight end, or even a running back, how many players will have over 500 receiving yards?
Oh, we've been talking about this on the Hail Varsity show for about a week now. So
Have you?
I'll turn
See,
it over.
I told you I was avoiding listening to the show because I didn't want to hear what you had to say ahead of time. Tell us about it, man.
So I have the number at 2.5.
Oh, high overs.
Okay.
We've had
Over 500?
We have had the
Yep.
number on Hail Varsity set at 3.5.
Okay.
That's the number we have set for 500-yard receivers.
So my rationale as far as why I put it at 2.5. In Satterfield's last year at South Carolina, he only had 2. He had 11 guys with 100 or more receiving yards. So in other words, he spreads the ball around a lot. The leading wide receiver last year, I don't know if that really means anything, was 310 yards by Billy Kemp. Oregon and USC last year, so 4 of the top 5 passing teams last year, Oregon and USC had 2 each, and Washington and LSU had 3 each. So I'm kind of just splitting the difference between 4 of the best passing teams last year, who 2 of them had 3, 2 of them had 2. I'm splitting the difference at 2.5. That's my rationale to put it at 2.5.
So for some
Not very many teams get 3.
some more math
or more.
here for you, though. For a guy to reach 500 yards on the season, assuming he plays all 12 games, he needs to average, it's 40 yards and change. It's like 41 point something yards per game, gets you to 500 yards receiving on the year. Why I say yes is because I don't think there's as many targets to go around for this Nebraska offense as there would be for, say, South Carolina's offense the last time Satterfield was here. You look at it, experienced wide receiver options you have, or
Are we just
Lloyd, Banks.
Are we just counting receivers, or is tight end in the mix?
Everybody that catches a ball.
Yeah.
So running backs, tight ends, wide receivers.
I'm saying wide receivers, you have 3 experienced options. Tight end, you have 1 in Fedoni. Running back, maybe 1 in Ramir Johnson. I don't see him getting over 500 yards receiving. But
Yeah.
I see the 4 guys there, and I ask the question, who is going to take targets away from those guys? Carter Nelson is one I'll put
Carter
out there.
Nelson, Malachi,
I think probably takes some targets
Jalen
away.
Lloyd.
Jalen Lloyd is included in the list of the 3.
Okay. Well, I mean, Malachi is just as experienced as Jalen Lloyd, so I was confused on that. My bad.
Jalen Lloyd doubled up his production last year.
That's true.
Whenever you think about it, I worry about this being a year where Malachi Coleman can get lost in the shuffle in a deep wide receiver room. That's what I say. The wide receiver room is deep, but in terms of the experienced college football options that you have that you're going to want to put out there for a freshman quarterback, you have 3.
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable to think that all of those guys can average 40 yards per game.
I don't see why Nair and Banks wouldn't. What were you going to say, Matt?
And I
was
think
just gonna say-
Lloyd can do that with 1 reception a game.
When you look at your quarterback and the fact that he can throw the ball 70 yards down the field, there's opportunity
Standing
there.
flat foot.
There's opportunity there for building up a high number of yards on a very few number of passes.
Especially if you can get behind defenses.
So that's the reason that I would definitely take the over.
I probably have Nebraska with not a 1,000-yard receiver. That's hard to get to, especially at Nebraska. But I think 3 500-yard receivers. I'm stuck between 3 and 4, and it depends on what Nebraska gets out of their tight end position. Can Fedoni get to 500 yards? I think it's going to be tough for him.
So before we lock in all of our answers, I did almost have the answer to this question. You either pick 1, 2, 3, or 4 or more. Is that, would you like that a little bit
just
better?
Being over 2.5 makes sense.
Okay, no, I'm just...
Only because of the way that you broke it down and described that those top 4 passing offenses only had this. Here's the other thing that I would ask about that is how many of those top 4 passing offenses, A, experienced a bunch of injuries, B, had consistent pass catchers throughout the season.
Well, Washington didn't. LSU didn't. Oregon didn't really have a bunch of injuries, at least on offense. So 3 of those 4.
I don't know. So you listen them off. I don't know. I don't know their injury situation. I think you make a compelling point about it. Me personally, if we're going to be as good as I think we're going to be, I think Dylan Raiola is easily going to hit for 2,800 to 3,500 passing yards. I think you have to, with the wide receiver and tight end depth that we have, I think you have to get 3 guys to that 500 number in order for him to get there. Just because I think there's 4 guys that you can trust in the wide receiver room for sure, maybe a 5th. And if Carter Nelson's out there, I think he's going to be more of a special package type situation, especially deep in the red zone. I'm not seeing him being, although we're hearing reports that, he's a real problem for that third, Jed made the comment, everybody and their mom's going to be frothing at the mouth to line up a 6'6" guy who can run a 4.4 40 in the slot against a third cornerback or a safety. You're not going to be able to do that consistently without him just getting blacked at the line of scrimmage after the 3rd or 4th game that we're doing that. I'm going to say over because I think Nayor is going to be our top wide receiver. I'm saying that right now. I think Banks is going to be exactly what he's been. He's going to be a 400 to 700 yard guy who jumps up high, catches the ball, and falls to the ground. Because like we've talked about before, he doesn't have any yak. But Jalen Lloyd, he has to catch 7 balls to go over 500 yards. So, he might not even have a big catches number, but I feel like when the dude's going to get his hands on the ball, he's going for 40 plus. And if he only does that once a game, there's your 500, like you just pointed out. Mm-hmm. So I'll go over.
I am taking the under only because of what I talked about with the top 4 offenses last year. If Washington and LSU, specifically with Washington, with the receivers that they had last year, where they get 3 over 500 yards, I don't think our offense is like Washington last year. So I'm only taking the under just for that specific purpose. I think it's going to be very close, though.
How many receiving yards did the top 2 have for Washington last year? Dunze was over 1,000.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And their number 2 guy, whose name is escaping me now, I think he was also over.
Dunze had 1,600. Jesus and Polk, Christ. I think, was...
he was at 1,150.
Yeah.
And then their third guy was at 559. So, their third guy was even just barely over 500. And they threw for 1 billion yards last year.
Yeah, but they spread that around a little bit, and those two top guys had 5 guys worth of 500-yard catching.
And their 4th guy was at 433, so he was close.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I don't think Nebraska's going to have a passing attack anywhere near Washington.
No.
But that being said, I still think, in terms of how you're going to spread it around, I think the lion's share of the targets are going to be going to 3 or 4 guys.
Okay.
Can I throw another stat out there for you, just because you talked about the top 4 passing offenses out there? Just looking at Big Ten pass catchers, just looking at wide receivers, you're looking at Ohio State, Illinois, Maryland, and Michigan all had 3 last year from the Big Ten.
How many total 500-yard receivers were there in the Big Ten last
29.
year? 29, okay.
30th guy was a 4th Maryland player who hit 491. So Maryland almost had 4.
Which is why I said I almost had the question of 1, 2, 3, or 4 or more.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I look at 3 potentially getting up to a 4th, but with that in mind, Maryland not even having 4 last year, 3 feels about right to me, but I could be talked into 4 depending on Carter Nelson / Thomas Fedoni and what type of targets each of those guys get.
Yeah. But shit. Northwestern had 2. It's crazy to me how out of it we were on that side of things. And I think maybe that's part of why we're looking at this so deeply down. It's not like in the Big Ten, it's not super uncommon if you've got a decent offense to get there.
And not that this really is a big thing because Nebraska historically had never really passed the ball that much, but we've only had 3 in a season twice. In 2007 and 2017. So
the fact that Illinois did it, that kind of boggles my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Those 2007 receivers, that Nate Swift, Maurice Purify.
Marlon Lucky, Swift, and Purify, yes.
Hey, look at that. And then 2017 had to have been Spielman, Morgan, and was Alonzo Moore still on that team? No, he couldn't.
DeMornay Pearsonell.
Okay.
Oh, Pearsonell.
Okay.
All right, question 8. How many guys will have double-digit tackles for loss? I had this question last year, and I'm going to keep it at the same number.
3 years in a row we've done this.
1.5. We haven't had 2 since 2018 with Luke Gifford and Mo Berry, and we had 0 last year. We had 2 guys at 8.5 and 8 last year.
It's tough.
I'm just going to go out on a limb and say over.
Okay.
Because I think that Hutmacher is going to be good, and Yamama Yellen is going to be eating people alive back there this year.
I with the way the talk was this week, I don't know how much he's going to be playing, but
Yeah, but then you hear that, but then he rolls out to presser yesterday.
I know. I'm just saying.
I mean, Rhule is doing as much, if not more, now than he's done since he got here, talking to his players through the media.
Yep.
There's one thing I will say regarding that, like with Princeville playing time, is I am a firm believer that Jamari Butler is set for a breakout year this year.
Oh God, yes.
I think he could be the guy that is your double-digit tackle for loss guy this year.
Absolutely.
The
Especially with
question
the
is-
additional 25 pounds he put on.
He's a sleeper candidate for me to be on your all Big Ten teams.
Yeah. He was borderline, should have been at least honorable mention last year.
Yeah.
You finished, he was second on the team in tackles last year?
I don't know about tackles, but tackles for loss he was 1, and sacks he was 1. So.
Yeah. I think he is only bigger, faster, stronger this year. Absolutely. I think Imam Yellen, if I'm not mistaken, is going to play more in that outside linebacker role this year than he did last year up on the line. I don't think you're going to see him get as many opportunities behind. He's going to be more of he's got that natural ability to read the RPO that he doesn't get lost in no man's land like a lot of guys do, even at the NFL level. So I'm not looking for him, but I think Ty Robinson, from what I understand, is going to see a little bit more time coming off the edge. I also think he's just going to be the biggest monster on our defensive line this year. I'm absolutely firm. This is the number's 1.5, right? I'm going with at least 2, if not 3.
I'm going under. I think Butler gets there. My question with with Ty and with Nash, those are 2 guys that are going to be eating up a lot of double teams this year. And I don't think their job is necessarily going to be getting the backfield and wreak havoc. It's going to be eat up some double teams, let our linebackers blitz through open holes, or let them read and react without an offensive lineman in their face. So I don't think either of them get to double-digit tackles for loss. I'm kind of with you on Princeville not being the same technical havoc-seeking role as last year. Cam Linhart is a possibility of being a guy.
Yep.
And then the other guy I think of is Javen Wright.
I think if Cam Linhart can be healthy all year, he's going to be a monster too.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think of Javen Wright at that second level being a guy that is probably going to be flowing downhill a lot and making plays in the backfield. That being said, I don't feel confident enough in either of those 2 guys to say that they're going to get double-digit tackles for loss because that's difficult to do. So I'm just going to go with the 1. I think Jamari Butler gets there. I don't think anyone else does.
I'm going with the under. A lot of the stuff with what you just said, but mainly we saw this last year where we rotate the shit out of our defense. And I just don't know that enough guys are going to play enough snaps to get to a double-digit sack or double-digit tackles for loss. I think 1 guy can get there. 2 guys, I don't know. I just think we rotate too much that you just don't have the opportunity.
You want to hear a crazy thing on this?
What?
So we talked about James Madison doing their transplant over to Indiana.
Yep.
They had 3 dudes in the top 20 in college football tackles for loss last year.
Yeah.
19, 20, and 21.
Yeah.
Holy ball
I
sacks.
told you earlier, they had 3 guys with
On top
double-digit
of that,
tackles for loss.
Aaron Casey at Indiana had 20.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. They were good.
Oh, my God.
They were really good. Question number 9. This one kind of encompasses, this is going to be, so question 10 is more of an overarching college football question. This is my last Nebraska question. This kind of overarches all of what Nebraska's offense might be. Total yards by Nebraska's offense. This number has been popping up. People have been talking about it all over the place. It might be the goal number. I'm just going to put it out at, are we going to get to 5,000 offensive total yards? So 4,999.5.
Well, I know that's my friend Gary Sharp's number.
I've heard him say it. I've heard 1,000 people. Yeah,
I think
Damon's talked about it like crazy. Yeah.
I
know John and Josh have talked about it like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But
5,000 is lofty.
It's kind of more of like what a lot of everybody that's brought it up. It's kind of more of like, can we get to 3,000 passing yards and 2,000 rushing yards? But the number is 5,000 yards total yards.
It's a tough one for me.
We had 3,753 last year.
It averages out, I think I want to say, to like 413 yards.
If you're talking 12 games, but I think we're going to play 13. If you go 13 games, it's 384 yards a game.
Yep. It's 416 if you just play in 12.
Okay.
So we are counting a potential bowl game.
Yep. This is for the entire season because, I mean, like, I brought up the sack number and I said how Michigan only had 39 last year, and that's in 15 games. Well, this is for the entire, this is everything.
I'll briefly put it at 13, 384. So we're talking probably how I'd
if we can get
that,
like, say, 250 passing yards and 130 something rushing yards.
I was going to say 240 and 140.
Okay.
240 and 140 be my number.
For college football, last year, to get to 384, that would put you at 68th in the country.
If you get to 5,000 yards, it's 64th in the country.
Okay.
As far as total yards.
I'm talking through, I'm just looking at Pro Football Focus. 384.7 is the 68th team. That's per game.
It's basically middle of the pack.
Yeah.
No matter if you're looking at yards per game or total yards, it's middle of the pack.
I absolutely think we're over that.
Okay.
I don't absolutely. I think
I will tell you this. Sorry to interrupt you.
You're good.
When we did our offensive preview, you were under this number, but that's why this was the one that I had second guessed my number. But because you said about 2,500 passing yards and you weren't sure on the rushing yards, you were at about 4,500 total yards last.
That's fair.
On the
well, I think that was also on my realistic prediction.
I'm just saying.
Remember, Fanboy prediction said Raiola was going to go for 3,500 plus.
Yep. Just saying.
You want to save me over here? Because I'm so conflicted on the 5,000.
I think it's going to be right around it. I don't think we quite get there. I'm going to take the under, but I bet we are in the high 4,000s.
Okay.
It just seems with as abysmal as we were last year.
One of the things that
I could very easily see us going over if Dylan Raiola is everything and more than what we think he is.
I'm going to go with the under as well because I brought up the fact that we went over those freshman quarterback numbers over the last 6 or 7 years, and of the ones that have started that had 500 snaps or more, the average was about 2,500 passing yards, almost 2,600 passing yards. So I'm not saying that that's exactly what Rhule is going to have, but I see him barely pushing the 3,000 number. And also, I'm not a big fan of our running game right now. So I cannot sit here and count that we're going to get to 2,000 rushing yards without a rushing quarterback.
So here's my real question for you on that, because that is something to unpack here. If you look at this, how far off do you think we're going to be from that 200 yard per game rushing mark when we are bringing back as much on the offensive line from a rushing offensive line standpoint as we had last year?
Yeah, but most of that was from the quarterback. Like, we had barely over 2,000 yards rushing last year, but if you take away the 600 or so that Harburg had.
Sure, I know, I get that.
I mean, that's
run blocking is run
under
blocking.
2,000, though.
I get that, but run blocking is run blocking. That wasn't all scramble yards.
But also, you take away the threat of the quarterback running, and the defense is going to play you a little bit differently.
But they'll also play you a little bit differently if you have the threat of beating you over the top.
100%.
That's why
there's
I'm
a give and take
so much
there.
here. This is such a tough number.
It is a very tough number.
5,000 sounds about like you talk.
I almost lowered it because of our conversation with the offensive one, but I'm like, no, fuck this. Especially if I look at 13 games, I'm keeping it at 5,000.
If it was 4,800, I'd go over 5,000. So tough for me.
Let me ask you this: Are we a top half offense this year? Are we a top half of college football?
Top half college football.
I'm talking all of college football.
Yeah.
You have to be 68th or better.
The one thing that holds me up there, there's so many teams that just want to run and gun and play fast and rack up yards. That's not what Nebraska's going to do next year. They're going to be running the clock down. They're going to be taking time off the clock, playing possession. I'm going to say Nebraska gets there over 5,000 yards, but they don't do it until a bowl game.
Okay.
It's kind of a double prediction. there.
Wow.
I think Nebraska makes a bowl game. I think they get over 5,000 in the bowl game. I think they end that Iowa game somewhere around 4,800, 4,850.
Okay. The last question is a college football overarching question. You kind of started talking about this in our, when we were running game by game and all that stuff with the Big Ten, how many teams were going to get into the playoff. So how many college football playoff teams will be from the SEC and Big Ten combined? 6 or less, 7, or 8+?
8+.
I'd say A+. This first year especially.
I think 6 is a guarantee every single
Yep.
year. I think you're going to get 3 and 3 no matter
Yeah.
what. Everything else, I don't know. Because then you're talking 6 other teams. You're talking Notre Dame, which probably the Group of 5 team, the ACC, the Big 10 or Big 12, and then you have 2 more spots for possibly another ACC team, and then you've got 1 other spot.
My over-under total per year would probably be set at 7.5. This year, I think, opening year of the playoff, I think they're going to want to be like, oh, yeah, we got a Group of 5 team and an extra one. They had a great year. So I'm going to go 7 make it in this year.
Okay, you guys both went 8+, right?
Yeah. Well, I just look at this and 8 of the top 9 teams in the preseason top 25 are Big Ten SEC. You go down, you drop that down to just the top 12, and you've got an additional. Well, it's actually just an additional 1. You drop it down to the next 2 past that, the full 14, and you've got another one there.
But again, you got to move like a Group of 5 team in there. You got to move.
I get that
an
they're going
ACC
to come from
team,
below that though.
You got to
They're
move
most
like at
likely
least
gonna come
5
from below
teams in
that.
there.
For our friend Brandon Vogel with counterread.com on the Hail Varsity Show, he did a study on this and essentially found, I think, 3.6 Big Ten teams finished the year after bowl season, pre-bowl season during college football playoff selection time in the top 12. And I think once you add Big Ten and SEC together, I think that number came out to like 7.6. So somewhere between 7 and 8, and your average year feels right. This year I'll go 7. Would not be surprised to see 8 though.
I'm going with 7 as well. I just don't know that both conferences are going to have 4 or even one's going to have 5.
Yeah.
I will say whoever up between the SEC and the Big Ten has 4, man, they're going to be chirping like crazy saying they're the best conference in the country.
That's what's going to make some of this Power 2 conference shit more fun.
Yes.
Yep.
It absolutely
even if they
is.
don't win the whole thing, they're going to be like, well, we got 4 in, so we're the best. Like,
Well, and here's the thing. I can't wait until both conferences have the same number of teams. Because the moment that it's 4 Big Ten and it's 3 SEC, oh, well, you got more teams than us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also have more shitty teams than you.
yeah.
The way I see it, just outside looking in, I mean, from the SEC, your likely candidates are Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, maybe Missouri, maybe Tennessee if the cards fall right for them, maybe LSU.
I was going to say you got Ole
You're
Miss.
forgetting Texas?
Yeah.
Oh, Texas. I did forget about Texas.
Like, you can't leave
Yeah.
Texas
God,
off
I forgot
this
they're in
list.
the SEC. Okay, so then I'll put Ole Miss, Georgia,
Alabama,
Bama,
who
Texas
knows?
in.
I'm not necessarily saying Alabama should be, but yeah, Alabama has to be in at least in the conversation.
So I got 4 probably
Unless
from the
Kalen
SEC.
DeBoer has a fucking meltdown, I don't see how they could.
4 from the SEC makes sense to me. In the Big Ten, I look at Ohio State, Oregon are locks before the
and
season
Penn
even
State,
starts.
in
They're
my
locks.
opinion, at least.
Penn
Yeah.
State, I think, is high likelihood. And then Michigan,
Iowa,
Iowa.
Michigan, who knows?
I'd say
Michigan is still going
Michigan,
to have
then
an insane
Iowa.
defense.
But yeah,
Michigan is still going to have an insane defense.
Yeah.
They put together a reasonable. Their schedule's not insane.
No.
They put together a reasonable offense, which they will.
I think
They'll be fine.
you could make a strong argument that there's going to be 5 teams from both the Big Ten and the SEC that by the end of the year might have an argument for it. So 7 out of 10 to make it in seems reasonable for me because you got to kick a couple people out.
Yeah.
So I'll go 7. I'll stick with 7. I did talk my way through it, but I'm sticking with 7.
That's
Yeah,
all
that's fair.
That's all I got, guys.
that's fair. This is fun. As always, man. It's great having you on. We love talking. We avoided any international odd sports this time.
Can we add one more to this? I have one more question for
Oh,
you
throw
guys.
it out.
Because we
Throw
were
it out.
we were talking Jamari Butler, and I said sleeper pick for all Big Ten team. Does Nebraska have a first-team All Big Ten member in 2024 by either coaches or media?
I think so. Yes. I think that a second year of a top 15 defense is going to be hard to
Just
ignore.
on defense or on the team?
On the team as a whole.
Okay.
I think it's going to be tough to ignore. I also think you have the potential of an offensive lineman or two that have an opportunity at that honor in Benhart and Scott. We'll see.
I'm going through my mental Rolodex here. I should have asked this question, asked off the top of my head. I think the last first-team All Big Ten selection for Nebraska was Malik Collins. Does that sound right to you guys?
Jeez.
Again,
Been
are you
a
talking
bit, for sure.
first team?
Just
or-
first team.
I don't know.
Just first team. I think you might have to go back to Malik Collins.
Probably. I mean, I can't even remember if he got one.
Honestly, I'll say no. I don't think we get a first team guy. I think we can get easily a second team guy, but first team, no.
Well, if we're a 9-3 team, I think we got to get one on there, which I think we're going to be. So there you are. There you are. What are the totals on this, Matt?
Matt, what do you...
I have no idea.
You don't think so? Well, here's the thing. You're gonna have three extremely good defensive lines that our guys are gonna have to compete with. So getting somebody in off the defensive line is gonna be tough. I think Gifford at safety. I don't know about the other safeties in the conference. I'm guessing Ohio State's got a really good one. I'm guessing Penn State's probably got a really good one, and Oregon's probably got a really good one.
With a conference as huge as the Big Ten has gotten, there's so much competition out there in each position. So I'm going to have to say no just because of math.
The two guys I think have the best argument for it. I think by the end they're going to be Tommy Hill and then Jamari Butler.
I would say Hill and Gifford would be my top two guys. Butler would be right there too, but
Yeah. I'm there with you.
I also think it's probably a no, but my most likely candidate's Tommy Hill.
I wouldn't be terribly surprised if one of them has an amazing season and get in there.
oh god, yeah.
It's going to be wild when you look at just the number of starts and snaps that Tommy Hill had on defense last year. How he's gotten the offseason national praise that he's gotten is wild to me. And to see him go through an entire offseason where that's the focus and he's not fighting with his teammates about whether or not he was even going to get kicked off the team. We might see 10 times better Tommy Hill than what we saw at the end of last year. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
There's some Kool-Aid for you.
What were the totals on our stats here? Me and you, I'm 9-3, obviously.
Hey, you're 9-3. I'm 8-4. Jed's at 7-5. Pretty sure he picked us to go undefeated. So
He stayed silent on all of them. We're taking him his wings.
yeah,
You heard that right
I
here,
picked
Ohio
for him.
State. We're coming for you, bro.
Ohio State's a blowout.
Yeah,
I mean, we're
I do
killing
believe
them
I
in
was
their own
quoted
stadium.
as saying Ohio State ain't shit. I think that was what I said during that preview. It's been a while now.
Well, now we have it on sound.
Yeah. now, just remember, Deion's going to come for you if you're wrong.
Yeah.
Hope he shaves his
That
beard
being
first.
said, fuck Colorado. We'll see you week 2.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.